Hello and welcome to Between the Lions, a podcast for Lions, by Lions, hosted by the Lions Club of Beaumaris. Today I welcome the sparkling Lee Murray, our Zone Chair and President of the Sandringham Lions Club. Our guest today is David McNamara. Lee will be conducting the interview with Dave, as Lee is a fierce warrior against hunger and has been a driving force in focusing her club on hunger projects. David McNamara is the CEO of Foodbank Victoria. David was a chef in a previous life and joined Foodbank in 2008 after serving as a program manager at Sacred Heart Mission. Dave was instrumental in getting the school breakfast club program started in partnership with the Victorian government. This program has been such a success that the Andrews government announced that a further 58 million would be directed at expanding the program. In addition to the school breakfast club, Foodbank works with farmers, manufacturers, and retailers to source food and partners with charities, schools, and transport services to deliver the food to those in need. It is the largest food relief organisation in Victoria. Foodbank is an impressive organisation, and Dave is a very impressive CEO. I'm very excited about this interview, so thank you to both Lee and Dave for being with us this morning. Let's get started.
I have a few questions for you today about Foodbank and this wonderful organisation that you're CEO of. And first of all, could you give us a bit of a background on Foodbank Victoria, how it started and how it fits in nationally and internationally?
Sure. Foodbank Victoria started back in 1930. It was the state government's response to the bottom falling out of the wheat market, the wool market, and the Great Depression. And we were also just coming off a large-scale drought. And so we were created to respond to all Victorians in all forms of need during crisis. And that obviously includes pandemics. So we've pretty much done the whole gamut of disaster since 1930. We joined the Foodbank Federation in Australia in 2006. And that also makes us a part of the global food banking network, which spans the globe and is in most countries around the world.
How many outlets do you have for collection, David?
For collection, we operate out of Yarraville. So we have our main warehouse in Yarraville. We have another warehouse in Brooklyn that runs our school breakfast program. And then we have another distribution site in Dandenong, which looks after about 90 of our charity partners in that region. And outside of that, we do a door-to-door delivery service across the state.
That's amazing. Reading through your excellent report, The Foodbank Hunger of 2021, I was struck by the sentence in the first paragraph. The first report in 2012 was met with disbelief that there were people going hungry in the lucky country. I think that a lot of people still disbelief that there can be food insecurity in one of the richest countries in the world. Would you tell us a bit more about what factors make food insecurity such a wicked problem and how you see it unfolding in Victoria?
Sure. I think it's still met with disbelief. I think people mainly think that hunger is something that happens in third world and developing countries. But there's about 1.2 million Victorians relying on us every month. The reasons why, there's a lot of them. Most people, around 60% of people looking for emergency food relief are actually employed. And what the issues are housing affordability, stagnant wage growth, casualised workforce, utility costs is a major impact on a lot of families. And so they're the main drivers around leading people to food insecurity. So people have a finite budget. They have to pay their rent. They have to pay their car insurance and registration. So the only, discretionary part in their budget is food. And so food's the thing that people go without. They gravitate towards a cheap food diet, which is nutritionally poor and energy dense, which leads to poorer health outcomes. And unfortunately, sometimes that's not even possible for people, and they find themselves going without meals. Our research tells us that most parents will go without 1 to 2 meals a day before they let their children go hungry. And even then, it gets to a point where their children go hungry as well. And that's just I think it is something that's really hard to believe, and it's something that we don't want to believe in a lucky country like Australia.
It's interesting you say that, because I pack food hampers once a week for an organisation that not only get food from a farm that we work at, but also from Foodbank. And in the Bayside area, people are astounded that so many people are looking for food during this time, and more so since the pandemic. And I see it that people are more asset rich than cash rich. Is that?
That's a great summation. A lot of people are asset rich, they're cash poor. And I think pandemic really brought home for a lot of people that have never experienced food insecurity before. That panic buying that first happened during when the lockdown first started, that when people couldn't find food on the supermarket shelves, every Victorian then got to feel what it was like to not be able to get the food that they wanted when they wanted it to put on their tables. And unfortunately, the pandemic has made that a lot worse for too many families.
You would have seen your numbers grow by triple during the pandemic.
Yeah, it's been a challenging period for the Foodbank team for the last 2 years, really, from responding to the bushfires, then straight into pandemic. We opened up new streams in our business because a lot of our charity partners closed down, so we did a lot more of the work ourselves. For everyone that was put in mandatory isolation that didn't have funds, we provided them with 14 days worth of food and personal items. So just that side of the business was something like 70,000 hampers were going out on a regular basis to families across Victoria. And then we set up our pop-up supermarket for international students because international students didn't get any financial support at the beginning of the pandemic, and they weren't allowed to leave home. And I think most people think that international students are rich, but that's only 5% of them. Most of the international students that arrive in Australia, their families have scraped together the money to get them here. And once they get here, they're on their own. And for many, the expectation is that they will get a job and send money back home. That was one thing that we set up in the CBD. We had 65,000 international students visit that pop-up store and help them through the pandemic. There's lots of other things that we've done as well.
And along with the Red Cross, you're one of the first responders to such things, particularly the Shepparton incident when they were running short of food and, the numbers were very high with COVID up there as well. So it's amazing work that you do. You have a very complex supply chain, having to source food from large number of donors and then having to package and distribute the food to the people who really need it, with complex logistics changing and challenging some of the biggest organisations over the last 2 years. How have Foodbank Victoria been coping, and what solutions have you embraced that will keep you post-lockdown?
So we don't call it a supply chain, we call it a surprise chain, because we never know in most cases where the food's coming from and when it's going to arrive. So we've always been fairly nimble and adaptable to changing landscapes around supply chain. We do a combination of using our own fleet of trucks and vans, third-party logistics. I think the pandemic really shook us up even about how we respond. That panic buying I spoke about earlier, that had lots of flow-on effects to donated food. Like at one point, we were down to less than 2 weeks' supply of food for the whole state. We've done a lot of overseas purchasing because there just wasn't local manufactured supply. We've still got ships on water on their way here that we've ordered stock 3 months ago. Global supply chains are in disarray. The local manufacturing seems to be coming back, but it is something that we're just constantly monitoring and managing. A lot of goodwill from community and volunteers helping to deliver food for us, but also dropping food into us, doing food drives for us. It's a community effort, really.
Listening to the ABC Melbourne and having seen some of your campaign emails, I see that you are focusing on ensuring that there is food on the table for all Victorians this Christmas. Can you tell us about this campaign and what are your targets and how is it going now and that you're heading into the home stretch? As we know, it's been a difficult 2 years, and everybody thought 2021 was going to be a much better year. But you must be sensing a sigh of relief knowing that you're coming to the end of this year.
We're looking forward to 2022 now. I say that with hesitation, but it certainly seems like things are getting better. For us, it is right now trying to get out as much food as we can to as many people as we can. We've got campaigns running at this time of year. What we're trying to do is raise $1.6 million, which will provide 3.2 million meals out to the community. And we're trying to get all those meals out as quickly as we can across the state to ensure that every Victorian has access to a well-deserved Christmas of celebration rather than, just survival. We're also cognizant of the fact that a lot of people are still struggling as their small businesses come back, as people try and find jobs again. So we also are getting prepared for what we know is traditionally a tough time, and that's that Christmas hangover when the credit card bills come in and it's back to school time. So we're just making sure we've got as much food out and as much food ready to go so that we can make sure we can respond to the community need.
David, how many volunteers would you have?
So we've got full-time staff of 92, and we'd have about that in the warehouse, across the warehouses every day as well. And the volunteers are made up of both community volunteers and corporate volunteers. Obviously, during pandemic, that made it very hard to run our business because we didn't have any volunteers. So our staff were amazing. They were doing their normal day jobs, and then they were going onto the warehouse floor, packing hampers. So you had, people on marketing, finance people, all doing their normal jobs and then helping out and coming in on weekends, working nights. They're going to enjoy a very well-earned rest at Christmas time too.
Do you shut down over Christmas?
Yeah, we do. So we take the main days between Christmas Eve through to the start of January, but we're actually going to take an extra week this year. So another reason why we're pushing out as much food as we can so that the guys can all have, guys and girls, can all have an extra week's holiday and a bit of a break before we come back.
Are you always looking for volunteers?
It depends on how demand is running. So we've got lots of volunteer opportunities, and I say that because we've got different businesses within the business. So we've got a pick and pack side of our business, which is picking orders that go out across the state. We've got a hamper packing side of the business, which is always packing hampers of mixed groceries. We've got the school breakfast program. So that's a program that we run across 1,015 state primary, secondary and special development schools. And those schools are always looking for more volunteers to help them run the program. So we help facilitate that. And then we've got things like our pop-up farmers markets we run across the state, delivering free fresh food to people like traditional farmers markets. And we've got our new mobile supermarket, which is one of those large articulated buses, the double buses with the piano accordion in the middle. So we've just started refitting those as supermarkets, and that allows us to take them into areas where there may not be charity to provide the service, or the charity can't deal with the scale of demand. And we can, for example, if it's the Sudanese community, we can fill the supermarket with appropriate food. And it's all about giving people choice to choose their own food that's safe for them, that they know how to cook. What we're trying to do is take away stigma and shame around food insecurity, because it can happen to anyone.
Everybody's very judgmental on that, particularly when a volunteer rocks up at somebody's home to deliver a hamper and they see this beautiful big home and think, why are they getting food? And it is wrong because nobody is understanding the circumstances that got them there. It could be a CEO that all of a sudden has been struck down by losing their job, and as you mentioned earlier, of all the commitments that they already have, mortgage, schooling, all those sorts of things, utilities, nothing's getting cheaper, everything's rising, so it creates a problem.
During the last lockdown, we decided to do a drive-through distribution. So it was contactless, no questions asked. You could come to our warehouse and we'd give you food. We did one During lockdown 4, we started this and we did 450 vehicles over a weekend. Lockdown 5, we did 450 vehicles over a day. And the last time we did 460 vehicles in the first hour. And then the police had to shut us down for public safety because the queue had gone 3 kilometres back over the Westgate Bridge and closed off Williamstown Road. In that one, I got to meet a lot of people that were driving Range Rovers and Mercedes and BMWs that were small business owners. They lost all their income. And, people were also in, old station wagons going, what are they here for? And when you explain to them, everyone was in the same boat. It's just they drive a different car, but their story's the same. And I don't think we can judge anyone.
No, you can't. And particularly, Megan would know that as Lions, that's something that we do not do. We do not judge, and that's the reason that we are a part of our organisation, is to help people and not judge. Could you just go back? We go back to, and Lions are very familiar with the School Breakfast Club program, and just update us a little bit more on how the program is faring, David?
I could talk all day about the School Breakfast program. So it's had a challenging couple of years with lockdowns of schools and remote learning, but it's still thriving. A lot of schools continue to operate throughout the lockdowns. It's grown substantially. So as I said, when it started, it was 500 schools. It's now 1,015 schools. It's healthy breakfast with numerous choices across fresh produce. I think there's 4 or 5 different breakfast cereal options now. There's hot and cold options for breakfast, all manufactured or produced in Victoria where we can. There's an emergency lunch provision as well, and they're again manufactured here in Victoria by a local manufacturer. And then we've got a holiday backpack program that allows students to take food home during the holidays. And we've also got a cooking program, which is working with the families of the children who attend our breakfast program and teaching them the basics around cooking, how to shop, how to make a recipe, and then teaching them knife skills, but learning in an environment which is safe, fun, where the families get to meet each other and the kids help drive the learning outcome for the parents as well. Because it was so comprehensive, it allowed a nice response during the pandemic. That hamper program I spoke about in holidays became a way of getting food to those families that couldn't attend school. So having that flexibility in the program, it meant that teachers were able to provide support to families that they knew needed it and still have that connection to school and the school community.
It's alarming the number of schools that you had before the pandemic and where you're at now. And finally, how can the Lions who are listening to this podcast help with your Christmas campaign?
Well, I guess cash is king, they say. Every dollar donated is 2 meals created. Just to explain how difficult that is and how cost-effective that donation is, that includes us purchasing the food from overseas, sourcing that food here in Victoria, getting it to our warehouse, as you said earlier, packing it into hampers, putting it onto pallets, shipping it across the state, delivering it onto tables. $1, 2 meals. So that is an amazing return on investment. The warmth and smiles that people get when they get that food, that's the best way to help.
I have to say that being involved in hunger projects, which is my passion and probably where Megan came from, to have me interview you today. Through our club, we're involved with a farm out of Clayton South, where we provide food to one of the organisations which you also provide food. And yesterday we were packing hampers for over 350 people. We see that truck pull up, and I totally understand where you're coming from. The pallets there, it's all plastic wrapped, and the produce is brilliant. And I think they get 400 kilos of produce from you every fortnight with regards to packing the hampers. So, and I've also not only packed them, but when I've delivered the hampers, and what you say is that warm feeling and how grateful that they are to receive just small things to make their life just that little bit easier. David, the organisation that we help out is Super Kitchen in Balaclava, where they pack fortnightly. So been involved in that project for the last 3 years, which has been amazing. It's opened my eyes up to a lot of things going on in the community that then allows you to be able to go in and help more.
It was always surprising to me that so many charities close over Christmas. Most of our charity, and we've got 530 charity partners, the majority of them close over that Christmas period and don't come back until the 2nd or 3rd week of January, or even after Australia Day weekend.
And it should too. It should run all year round, because hunger doesn't stop because organisations, decide to have a break for a month.
Yeah, and I understand it. Most of the charities are run by volunteers and they want to have a break. So it's just, it's one of those contradictions that the disadvantage doesn't go away over Christmas, but all the assistance goes away. It's
It increases, I think, because they're trying to provide, gifts and things like that for their kids that they can't afford, but the kids still have some sort of Christmas. I think you'll see it coming back even more at the beginning of the year when they're looking, as you said earlier, to pay those credit cards. Also, they need to get school books, school uniforms, all those sorts of things. So it just keeps on going. But there must be peaks of the year that you have, like at the end of the year and the beginning of the year.
That's exactly right. So the peak is right now, and then the peak is that late January back to school time, and then we don't see another peak then until around June, July, when heating utility bills start to go up. So they're our 3 main peaks of the year.
And it's interesting with the organisations with the utilities that they don't give discount over winter, and that's when they need it because they're home all the time. So their bills are really high. It's awful.
And that's one of the things of lockdown that I don't think people recognised is people were home all day. And so things were on. The heaters were on all day and televisions were on all day. So utility costs during that period were quite high. Yeah. It was like a perfect storm. Everything that could go wrong for people disadvantaged or on the edge went wrong for them. So, but once you come down and you see the warehouse, people are always blown away by the size and the scale. I think people think of Foodbank and they think of like Super Kitchen, but we supply all these organisations and they don't, I think, conceptually link what that means. And so when you come and see 10,000 square metres of warehousing and fleets of trucks and vans and pallets everywhere, you start to go, oh, my God, there's that much disadvantage around the state.
It's a wake-up call.
Yeah, just people just want to be noticed, that their story matters, that they matter, just a chat and the chance to tell their story. That's what all people just need, human connection.
They do.
Foodbank Victoria, our supply chain, we rescue food from farm gate, from manufacturer, wholesaler, importer, exporter, from overseas. But then we distribute it through an amazing group of charity partners, over 530 charity partners across the state. So that includes Salvation Army, St Vincent de Paul, Uniting Care, neighbourhood houses, super kitchens, the whole gamut of providing assistance to people that need it. And that's done whether it's a community kitchen where they're creating meals, whether it's a supermarket where people choose their own, or whether it's a bespoke hamper-style delivery. Wherever people need food, we will find a charity partner to deliver it to them, or we'll do it ourselves to make sure everyone gets fed. I think the greatest gift that you can give yourself is giving someone else something that you feel twice as good as they feel, I think.
And it's always a privilege to be involved in these types of programs to help those. So thank you very much, David. I've really enjoyed our chat today and I've learned so much more about your organisation.
My pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity. And to everyone out there at Lions, thank you for your service. I mean, you guys make a huge difference out there in the community. I remember growing up in a small town in regional Victoria and the Lions were active there, and went back just recently and you're still active there. So your connection to community and your service doesn't go unnoticed and probably doesn't get thanked enough. So thank you all for what you do for the community.
we should ask you, have you ever thought of joining Lions?
Well, I'm probably at the right age now, so yeah, no, I'd love to.
That was a bit cheeky, wasn't it?
That's all right.
I just wanted to thank you both for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And I'll put all the details of where people can donate in the show notes and up on the screen. And how close are you to your target, your Christmas target?
I think we're about halfway. Still got a way to go, but, still a bit of time.
Thank you, Lee and Dave, for a wonderful interview. Thank you for being so very generous with your time. I also just want to highlight for all you listeners out there something that Dave said. They still have a mountain to climb to reach their target for their Christmas program. They are only halfway, and we are already into the second week of December. If you or your club can find it within your reach, please think about donating to Foodbank Victoria and help to make sure that nobody has to go hungry this Christmas. As always, please share this podcast among your club members and like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify or Apple. Thank you, and I hope you all have a wonderful festive season.